story today started way early in the morning, back at 5 a.m. Over the last 5 hours, we have ridden over 250 kilometers on my own Duke, and now we are somewhere in Asansol, and we're about to ride the all-new Yamaha FZ25.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move. You can make me move.
We're rolling now, and right off the block, the motorcycle doesn't feel all that powerful, but it's too early to give the verdict on power. I would like to just talk about the ergonomics. It's very comfortable. The body positioning is slightly leaning forward, just a little bit, nothing too aggressive. The handlebars seem low though. They are pretty low. I mean, for a shorter rider, you would have to lean more. I'm about 5 feet 8 inches, and I'm finding it that the handlebars are low, but I don't have to lean down too much. But yes, if you want to lean down while you're doing some highway rides or for more aerodynamics, I think you would be feeling right at home because the handlebars are pretty low, and that's gonna give you more feedback into the corners. So Yamaha, despite making a commuterish riding position, and I'm calling it commuterish because the foot pegs are absolutely front set, just like what I found on the Domina, but the handlebar is in a more racy position, so it's a kind of a mixed position. Now I won't lie to you, I have looked at the specs, and the motorcycle makes about 20.3 bhp of power, close to around 8,000 rpm as far as I remember. Okay, I dropped a gear, now let's open. Okay, that's got that rev limiter thing, and the entire console started blinking over, and now we're doing 131 kilometers per hour. It's pretty nice, pretty flickable on the highway. Even at 132 kilometers per hour, I didn't have a problem flicking that motorcycle. Trying to do a little bit of the top speed. It's got pretty nice acceleration, mid-range. I would say it's nice, and I think the power on the top end is more than the Apache. That much is pretty sure. But after 132, what I could see that the motorcycle did not gain too much top speed, so maybe it's around 132, but I cannot really go into the top speed right away and tell you the verdict. We'll try again. What I'm gonna talk about is the power delivery. It's very linear, and there is a slight delay, which is not something I like. The power delivery is very gradual, very beginner friendly, and some people might say it's commuter like, but where it differs from other commuter bikes I've ridden is that even then there is quite a bit of surge, and that surge is coming in a very predictable way. So a beginner rider can take this motorcycle and really enjoy the safe fast speeds. The brakes, well, it's got somewhere around a 283 millimeter disc up front, which is close to 300 mm, just a tad smaller, and the rear is also a 220 mm disc, single disc. Both of these are single disc, but what I find is that the braking could be a little better. I mean, I didn't use both the brakes, I used just the front, and it's not bad. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's got that bite early on, and then the rest is progressive. Okay, the suspension's pretty soft. I just went over some bad bumps, and The suspension's pretty soft actually. I didn't really feel that. I'm again going over some more bad roads. So we've been riding the FZ all afternoon now, and we've covered over 50 kilometers on this bike. We've had mixed conditions. We've gone over some really bad patches of road, some heavy traffic, and we did a little bit of cornering. Well, I'm not really satisfied with the cornering test, but the bike holds its line pretty nicely. First thing is the Yamaha console this time gets a lot of features. We've got a clock, we've got even projected mileage, and of course the usual things like odometer and all that is always there. This bike misses a gear position indicator, but the rev limiter blinks to tell you that it's time to shift up. So that's a nice touch for Yamaha. Styling wise, I see that the motorcycle is very muscular. It somewhat starts where the FZ16 left off, and we can see these nice tank scoops, and overall the bike gets a lot of muscular look. It looks like a bigger bike, but of course when you compare it to the KTM Duke 250, I think the Duke 250 is the clear stunning winner in the looks department. As for this motorcycle goes, it gets the SOHC engine and not the DOHC engine, which is a bad thing. For 250cc motorcycle, the power is 20 bhp, which might disappoint a lot of people, but honestly while you're riding it, you will not feel that disappointment. I'm not sure what the weight of the motorcycle is, but it feels pretty lightweight and nimble because of the chassis, which is again Yamaha technology, so nothing to complain about there. Honestly, the bike right off the block gets good acceleration when you're really pinning the throttle, but while you're riding it like a commuter fashion, it really feels underpowered. But when you blink open the throttle, the only thing I've got to complain about is the feeling on this bike is not as good, and when you compare it to the Duke 250, it's even more evident. For example, when you open the throttle, first there is a delay, which was there in what I remember the Pulsar RS 200's original version, but then when the power comes, it's very linear, very progressive, and it feels pretty nice to go through all the gears, and the acceleration is pretty good. I've done some acceleration testing, but I can only comment on the timings while I go home and see the timings back on screen. For now, what I can tell you is this bike feels really good to commute. The foot pegs are front set, which means while you're doing your normal commuter stuff, you will not feel any sort of back pain. The seat is wide enough, and pillion seat has also got the comfort. So on the city commute, it's pretty nice, but while you take it out to twisties or go for some cornering fun, it's not gonna disappoint you too much there. Well, if you take it to the highway, I've already clocked about 132 kilometers per hour on this bike, and up to 132 kilometers per hour, it goes there very smoothly, and it's not like the other 150cc motorcycles that I've tested, which kind of struggle after 120 and somehow managed to touch 130. Right now it's starting to rain, so maybe we'll get to test out the wet grip of the tires. I surely hope not, because the leather ain't that waterproof. But overall, I feel that this is a motorcycle that is Yamaha should have launched it a few years back, because right now the competition is there and a lot of other bikes have come in, like the Apache 200. Of course, this is a lot more powerful than the Apache 200, to be honest. But there are other options like KTM Duke 250 is there, the CBR was always there. And right now the market has heated up, so we'd have to see how this bike does on the market. There are a few things like the RVM quality and the switch gear quality isn't that great as what you'd expect from a 1.5 lakh rupee motorcycle, but these are like nitpicks. If you talk about the braking, for city use the brake is pretty nice. For highway use, I would say that I would have expected a little bit more from the front. The Bibre calipers are doing their job, and initially what Bibre had a problem, there was lack of bite, but I did not feel this on this motorcycle. Also, the chassis holds the bike pretty steadily, so the bike doesn't wobble around under hard braking, which is another confidence boosting touch. Speaking of confidence, doesn't have an ABS. Now this is something that we have been complaining about from several manufacturers, including Kawasaki and other manufacturers as well, like the Yamaha's own R3 doesn't get ABS, and this also doesn't get an ABS, not even as an option. I was really disappointed with that, because being a 250cc naked, which does pretty good on the highway, actually I wasn't expecting so much, which means that for budget option as a tourer, I could really see that this bike bike with a tall added windscreen, tall aftermarket windscreen, and a few saddlebags could work as a very entry-level tourer, but there the ABS is going to be missing. Now tires, if you want something better, you can always switch to your Pirellis and your Metzeler's, but ABS won't be something so easy to put on a motorcycle. So I think Yamaha should offer at least an optional ABS variant. I think the rain's gonna come in very soon and the weather's getting bad, so I'll stop it here, but I'll keep on testing and I'll update you. By the way, if you're wondering where this beautiful location at, we are here at Chittaranjan, which is one of the most beautiful suburban areas that I've experienced, and we are around 270 kilometers out from Kolkata, and we traveled all this distance just to bring you the FZ250 review. So I hope you subscribe if it's the first time on your channel, and stay till the end because we're gonna give you more updates after we are done with the complete testing of the Yamaha FZ250. Now it's time to talk about the direct comparison with the KTM Duke 250, because I know a lot of you guys would be wanting it. I've covered over 50 kilometers on this bike. I've done 30 kilometers on the KTM Duke 250 only last week, so I think I'm qualified enough to make a comparison. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the looks. The KTM Duke 250, to be honest with you guys, is much more catchy, and this bike, you know, it's big. You can understand that it is not any standard commuter bike, but when you look at the styling standpoint, it doesn't get all new elements. So it's got that same big tank scoop and all that. Yamaha has a subdued styling, KTM has an all aggressive big bike styling. So it depends on what you like. Some people may argue that this looks better to them, and I wouldn't argue with that because looks are subjective. But let's move into the performance. I honestly think that when braking is concerned, this bike has almost the same performance as the Duke 250. Now we'd have to do some side-by-side riding, but what I can tell you right now is that braking is almost the same. When you take a look at some other point of view, like the acceleration, honestly the acceleration on this bike feels good, really good, and I think it's got more go than the Duke 250. But one place where the Duke 250 works a lot better than this, and that is the fueling. The fueling is so apt, and it has got such a nice power delivery that actually that bike is more fun to ride than this, though this is actually, I believe it is faster. And when you open the throttle, see, this bike's got that jerky power delivery. Even Duke's got that. When you open the throttle in higher gear, the roll-on acceleration, there is a sort of a gap here, and it was there in the Duke but not so evident. Here it's definitely there. So I've talked about the styling, the braking, and the power delivery. I think in the styling the KTM wins. In the braking it's a tie. In how fast it is and the acceleration, this I think wins because it's got more punch. And when it comes to the power delivery, the KTM wins. It's the sitting ergonomics. I think both of the bikes make a really good case for themselves. The KTM has a slightly more sportier stance. I think the KTM has better seat, and I never thought that I would say this, but KTM is the better, cushier and better comfortable seat. It's got a wider seat. KTM has gone a long way. Pillion seat, I would say both are almost the same. When you are taking a look at some of the other nuances, such as the switch gears and other stuff, I think KTM has an advantage over there. Fit and finish wise, both the bikes are overall good, but KTM again has a little bit of advantage. The Duke 250 is of course a lot more expensive. When you look at the pricing difference, until and unless you want that Super Duke R looks, and the fueling, well, I think that will be a lot better in track because it's got a rear set foot peg and the sportier stance wise and ergonomics wise, that bike trumps this one. It's got a better seat, it's got the perfect positioning of the handlebars, the foot pegs are nicely rear set. But then again, if you're looking for something more comfortable and more commuterish, this one's there for you. For touring, I would say both the bikes are about the same. Both have the same sort of saddlebag options. Both the bikes lack ABS, and the KTM's feeling is nice, but this bike's got that peppy punch, the acceleration, which will also be useful in the highways. Top speed wise, I could do 132 kilometers per hour on this, and I think it might go a little bit bigger, but not much, whereas the KTM should go around 142 speedo indicated, and that it should do pretty easily. So when you're talking about power delivery and the top speed, KTM's got a slight advantage here. So these bikes are somewhat neck and neck, and that means that we have to do a bigger comparison. We have to ride these bikes back to back. And you know, the turn in is pretty easy on this bike. This bike is really beginner friendly. I mean, I usually say that yeah, you can start on a 250cc bike, but if you want to start on a 250cc bike, this is going to be one of the best bikes, I would say. The only thing that's bothering me, and I'm saying it many times, probably repeating and boring you out, and that is that I really wish there was an ABS option, specifically since this motorcycle is priced so well. I think it's around 1,45,000 for the non-ABS version, and which makes this ABS version could have easily been at around 1.7 or 1.8 lakhs. I think 1.7 would have been fine for an ABS version, and there would have been a lot of takers, honestly, specifically since the bike can do this. I will just show you. And see the braking, it's pretty good. Happy with that, pretty happy with that. You have to go full power, you have to lean in, but it's pretty strong. It's got a lot of punch when you really ring the throttle and make the motorcycle sing. Those guys are leaving me, so now I have to test the top speed, and let's see what the motorcycle can do. We're at 124. Got pretty strong headwinds. 126. We're heading a straight, so touch it down on the tank, and let's see, 134, 136, 137. Pretty remarkable what this motorcycle can do. I think I saw 137 on the speedo, which is pretty good. I'm gonna try again. Backpack, which might increase some drag, but it's still doing pretty good. Let's see, 135, 136, 136 is the top speed. Last time I saw 137. Seems locked up at 136. I think it's locked here. Otherwise, the bike feels like it can do more. It's pretty nice. It's pretty good. I'm satisfied with the top end. It's 250cc, it's doing 137. I know the CBR does a lot more, but honestly, for a 20 bhp motorcycle for highway cruising, I was hunched up on the tank. I'm just a 5'8" and I'm about 60 kgs. I'm a pretty lightweight guy, pretty aerodynamic with all the helmet and the leather race suit. I do have a big backpack on my back, and that's not gonna do too well in the aerodynamic drag, but I achieved about 137. It was kind of locked at 137, and initially I was like, the motorcycle doesn't increase up to 132. It went straight like an arrow, and then slowly it went up to 137, which and you know, the engine has a very peppy top end. It's now that the engine is on the mid-range and I'm doing around 6,000 RPM, I think the key to this bike, and specifically with these SO8C engines, you have to keep them kind of on the boils, and then they feel like a different bike. Right now, when on the city, this might not feel any different, but when you're on the highway, you're doing the mid-range, it definitely feels a lot peppier. I don't know, I mean, I haven't ridden the Duke like this, I haven't tested the Duke like this, but the 200 and 390 both I've ridden, and both feel equally peppy. So I think this bike's gonna give it at least the 200 and the 250 Duke some serious competition. Okay, that definitely I'm gonna recommend this bike over the Duke 200 because I think it makes more sense. It's got that comfort, it's got a bigger fuel tank, and it's an all-new motorcycle. Well, the 200 is pretty lightweight as well, so that might be an advantage that the 200 has. KTM's kind of targeted towards the young college going rider, or the riders who's looking for a lightweight bike for mainly performance. This is looking at a more stylish commuter. It's like for those middle-aged guys who still want to have fun. I'm not gonna say that this doesn't make sense to a college going student. It does, because of several reasons. First of all, it's more economic than the KTM, but of course we know that Yamaha servicing and spare part cost is pretty high even for the R15, so this one's gonna be expecting a little bit more on this one. So in that way, I guess KTM's gonna be a good option, that specifically the Duke 200. If you ask me, this bike sits somewhere between the Duke 200 and the Duke 250, but in the price point as well as it's close to, actually it's cheaper than the Duke 200 as well. Yamaha has made a product which is quite different, but you know, it lacks that premium feel of a 250cc, or even for when the Dukes came out, they weren't really considered premium, but this bike is a step down from that. I know it gets nice LED headlights and all that, but overall there is that premium feel is somewhat missing. The cost cutting they've done to keep the pricing very competitive, it works for one sort of riders, whereas other sort of riders might end up going for the Duke 250. Honestly, I'm still split, but if pricing is your only concern and economy, fuel economy, this guy is the owner is claiming that the fuel economy is around 30 kilometers per liter, when even when mixed use, he's not saying that it's just city, it's mixed use, city and highway, and it's doing 30 kilometers per liter, which I think is very decent for a 250cc motorcycle. However, when you look at the power figures, maybe not so much, but there are something extra, other things that you have to notice, that the power and the torque both are being delivered at a relatively lower RPM, and that basically means that you've got more power in the mid-range and you feel that the motorcycle is more powerful than the spec sheet suggests. When I originally read the spec sheets, I wasn't really satisfied, but then again, I would not make a verdict without actually riding the bike, and after riding it, I'd say I'm pretty satisfied. Sometimes when you ride a motorcycle, you feel that there is something wrong and you just can't put your finger on it. But after coming back from the ride, I realized what it was. Now, the Yamaha FZ25 checks a lot of boxes. It's lightweight, it's got a decent amount of power, and the pricing is just perfect for the Indian market. I think that where this bike misses out is the power delivery. A bigger sprocket, and because of the lightweight, when you're really pinning the throttle, you're doing 0 to 100, the time is really impressive. But that's not the only type of acceleration. Roll on acceleration, and when you're doing somewhere around 2,500, 3,000 RPM, when you open the throttle, you would find that the engine response is sluggish. Just looking at the spec sheet of the 0 to 100 times, you won't realize that. But I've also talked to my friend Adrish, who is a previous FZ16 owner, and he also felt that the power delivery and the response from the engine was pretty disappointing. His input was that 5 bhp of more power would have really sealed the deal, and I would have to agree with my friend here. So 5 bhp of more power and an optional ABS version, and this would have been a clear winner in my book. For now, I'm just not convinced. Yes, for the money, the value it offers is unbeatable, but I'd still like to see a future version with about 5 bhp of more power and that optional ABS at least. Thanks for watching. I hope this video wasn't too long for you. I tried to give you a full verdict, so it got kind of dragged along, but thanks for being with me patiently. And if this is the first time on my channel, do hit that subscribe button and watch a couple of other videos which will pop on screen, which might interest you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon. This is Rahul. Goodbye.